Hi there, everyone. This is Mark Plunkett, the pastor of Heritage Presbyterian Church, with another of our 2-minute Bible lessons. These come from some of the letters of Paul. Now, when you read the letters of Paul, they are amazing. They are filled with the most amazing theology and the thoughts about God and instructions to the people of God back in those days, most of which apply directly to us today. And Paul often put in his own opinions, his strategies for what he was going to do next, people he met along the way. But along with all of those other things, Paul threw in some kind of interesting little tidbits in about 5 of his letters near the end of the letters. Now, if you were going to write letters in those days, it was a tough process. You didn't just, pick up a pencil and start writing or pick up a pen. They didn't have those things. You had to mix the ink. You had to get the right kind of paper. Usually they had very well-trained slaves that did this or scribes that did this. And it took a while to get trained in it. So for Paul to include the things that he did in his letters is kind of amazing. Listen, in Romans 16, verse 22, he writes that Tertius wrote this. It says, I, Tertius, wrote this letter for Paul. So we know that he had a secretary or somebody to help him. But then in 1 Corinthians 16:21, Paul says, I wrote this. Okay? In Galatians 6:11, he says the weirdest thing. He says, look at the large letters that I'm making with my own hand. Why would he say that? What a funny thing to say. And then in Colossians 4:18, again he says, I, Paul, wrote this letter. And finally, Thessalonians 3:17, he says what I think is the most unusual thing. I, Paul, wrote this. This is how I write. These are how I make my letters, or something like that. Now, why would that be included? I think 2 reasons. Number 1, Paul was trying to add his own handwriting as part of the authority. In other words, I wrote this. You can believe me. The other thing is, this isn't a fake. There were some letters that we're not sure Paul wrote them. They may have been written on behalf of Paul, but we're just not sure. But some of these where they say, I, Paul, wrote this, it adds a little bit more to it, a little bit more belief, you might say. And of course, in the minds of some people, they say, that proves it's a fake. He wouldn't have said that. I don't know about that. I think it adds a little bit to the wonder and the mystery of what Paul did. Amen.